Okay, great, Mr. Melvin. So, how do you plan to build relationships within the community?
The relationships in the communities, right now we have a spike in crime. Now, this spike in crime, I can't really hang this one around totally around the current sheriff. You can see a spike in crime going all around the nation. And after we saw the horrific murder of George Floyd, and that was a murder, in my opinion, that was not police action. We saw that on TV. We saw that man get killed on TV. That hurt the law enforcement community. Those officers, especially that one officer in particular, really crushed the law enforcement community because it caused such a backlash as it relates to defunding the police, as it relates to what the police can and cannot do. The police, in some degree, to some degree, became handcuffed. So now you got officers that said, you know what? For me to be on the safe side, I'm not going to be proactive. I'm not going to get involved in these community situations. I'm going to just be reactive. That's not the way to police. We don't need to be reactive. 99% of the officers out there are great officers. What you saw that day with George Floyd was that 1%. And it's sad that it came to that. That was just a sad day when I looked at it, and it bothered me. And it still bothers me today because it hurt us. So now you have a spike in crime because the officers are reluctant to become more proactive, getting involved in these communities. Another thing we need to do, we need to be more involved in youth intervention. We need to get involved in these youth at an early age. I want to bring back a DARE program or some type of youth programs back into our schools. I want my officers to be in these communities, especially with these kids that's growing up in a single parent home. I don't want the officers to just show up to arrest someone. That's the only time some of these kids see police officers or sheriff's officers, when there's time to make an arrest. That's unacceptable. These officers need to get out of those cars, shake hands, get to know the people in those communities. Once you get to know those people in those communities and the people begin to know you, you will then see a drop in crime because they can trust you. They have to know that you're not there all the time just to make an arrest. You're not going to arrest their uncle, their father, their brother, their sister, their mother. They got to know that you're their friend. And that would actually reverberate throughout that community. And guess what else would happen? If there's a crime that happens in that community, the officer, because he's so entrenched in that community, he can almost solve that crime within a day or two because he knows what's going on in that community. We need to get back in those communities and those communities that need us. Thank you.
Great, great. What support systems will you create to help the agency?
The support system I would create would be the youth intervention system. And I'm not talking about just in these black and brown communities. I'm talking about all communities. You know, people think that it's law enforcement and then you have the communities. That's not it. We're all one. Law enforcement and the communities are all one entity. Law enforcement agencies or law enforcement officers come from where? The same communities that you live in. My vision is this. If I hire a law enforcement officer, I want to know where he's from, what community he lives in. And guess what I want to do? I want to have him patrolling in those communities that he's from. He's familiar with the people there. He can relate to what's going on. So the community sees him not as an officer, but as a person from the community. He's of the community. So the first thing I want to do is get officers in the communities that they're from. Currently, guess what's happening? We're going outside the county to hire officers. And I guess I can kind of understand it because no one right now in Guilford County, because they see what situation they have to work under the current sheriff, no one wants to work under these kind of conditions. So hopefully what the current sheriff is doing, he wants to go outside these communities and try to recruit. The problem is, and I don't have a problem with that. If necessary, we will have to do that. But I want to give the men and women from Guilford County first choice to be hired for the Guilford County Sheriff's Office. I don't want to go to another county and then there's people right here, or there's great officers right here that we can hire. And I want to put them in their communities, to get involved in those communities. I need these officers to get out of their patrol cars. I need them to walk around these communities. Now, do I need them to walk around Laguna Street or these nice streets that we never have a problem out of? We never get a call? No, we go where the problem is. So we need to cut down on crime, and we can do that first by the youth intervention, and we can secondly do that by officer intervention early, being proactive and not so much reactive, because we're not just there just to clean up after a crime. We should be there to stop the spill to start with. Thank you.
Great. So we have one last question. Is there anything that you would like to add?
People, I need your support. I need your vote. Sometimes we want to vote for the candidate that he may be your buddy, he may be your friend, but you already know that going into the general election, there may be some issues. Well, you best believe if there's issues with that candidate now, Danny Rogers is going to exploit that going into the general election. Can you afford to give Danny Rogers another 4 years? And you need to ask yourself that. Ask yourself, is Ed Melvin afraid to point out the deficiencies with the current sheriff? Or will somebody else come up and you vote for him in the primary, and in the general election, he's demolished by Danny Rogers? By doing that, you just handed Danny Rogers 4 more years. I can promise you this with certainty. If you vote for me, and if I win the primary, I am 100% sure that Danny Rogers will be gone in November. I think those of you who know me, you know that I don't bite my tongue, I have no problems, and the most important thing is there are certain cards that Danny Rogers will not be able to play with me. And you know what he does, and he's gearing up for it. I'm disappointed that we have a sheriff like this in office to serve the citizens of Guilford County. We deserve better. So I'm asking each and every one of you to vote for Ed Melvin for sheriff. Thank you.